Today's daily code problem of the day is delete characters to make a fancy string number 1957. For this problem, a fancy string is a string where there is no three consecutive characters that are equal. So we're given a string S and we want to delete the minimum possible number of characters from S to make it qualify as a fancy string. So we're going to return the final string after the deletions, and it can be shown that the answer will always be unique. So for example, here we have Leetcode, but with three E's in Leet. So we're going to get rid of one of the E's and make normal Leetcode. Same thing down here. We have three A's in a row. We get rid of one of them. We have four A's in a row. We have to get rid of two of them because we never want to have more than two characters consecutively next to each other. So for this problem, very simple. We're going to do some string manipulation. And to do that, we are going to simply go through each character. And if we identify that there are more than two characters that are the same in a row, we will remove the third, fourth, fifth, sixth version of that character until we reach a new character. So the first thing we're going to do for this problem is turn our string into a character array so it's easier to traverse and keep track of where we're at in the string. So char array, we could call it our array, is equal to a s.to char array. So that's the first step down. We turn our string into a character array. Now we are going to keep track of our current character we're looking at and how many times that has occurred. So we're going to have a character, that's going to be our previous char, and that's going to start as array of 0, and that's simply going to keep track of what the previous character was, and then we're going to keep track of how many times that previous character has occurred. So pre-char count, so we'll call it count, is equal to 1 because it has happened once at array of 0. So we are going to keep track of how many times that character arises. Now, the last thing we are going to initialize before we jump into traversing our array is an integer k. K is going to be the increment of the correct position in an array. So, for example, here, we turned our string into a character array. So let's say this is what our array looks like. So we have AAAAVC. Well, automatically we know that we got four A's in a row. So let's say this line is our I variable. Below our K variable, we're going to say, okay, 1, correct, 2, correct. Okay, so this is our index 3 with I. However, our K value is going to say we're not going to put A here again because that would lead us to have 3 A's. So we're going to move on. This is A again. We don't want to put another A. Okay, cool, a new character. So this is the new 3 index in our array. This is the new 4 index in our array. So basically what we're doing is sorry, Siri is getting active. So what we're doing is we're manipulating our array here to store our result while we traverse it. That way we can conserve our memory and it will theoretically be faster. So in our array, we're going to be traversing, say A. Okay, this is our third A. What's our next valid variable? V. So we're going to replace this with V. A, okay, next valuable variable is C, and then so on and so forth. So ultimately, we will manipulate our array to look like that. So that's why we're going to have K. Now all we're going to do is simply loop through and check if our array of I, or whatever index we're currently at, is equal to our previous character. And if it is, we'll see how many previous characters count there has been. And if it's only 2 characters in a row, that's fine. If there's more, we need to do something about it. So for each integer I is equal to 0, as long as I is less than our array.length, I can increment. And now we want to switch 0 to 1 because we've already accounted for array of 0 and our first index there. So we're going to start at 1. And then we're going to check if our array of I is not equal to the previous character. So if the current character we're looking at is not equal to the previous character, we don't have to worry about having 3 characters in a row. So we're going to update our previous character to be equal to array of I. And then we're going to say our previous character count is equal to 0. Now, the reason we're going to leave it at 0 is because we're going to increment it in the next step. So we're going to say if it's not equal to the previous character, then we're going to reset. We're going to update our new character and update its count. If it is the same as the previous character, we're going to check if, regardless, we're going to check this. So if, now we're going to increment it before we check. The reason we're going to increment it before we check is it's the same thing as if we said prev char count plus plus and then jumped into our if statement, but we don't want to have an extra line. We're conserving our space and time here. So we're going to increment it before we do our check. So first increment, then we're going to say previous char count. If it's greater than 2, we are going to continue. So we're not going to track that character. So whatever comes after this line would not be ran if there are more than 2 of this current character. Otherwise, we obviously don't have 2 of this current character, so we're going to implement it into our array. So array of k, and we're going to increment k, is equal to array of I. So we're going to create whatever our, or we're going to replace whatever character is at k, which might be a triple duplicate, meaning we have 3 of that character. We're going to replace it with the current new character we're looking at. And it's as simple as that. Now we can return a new string. And the reason we're using this function is we're allowed to define our string using our character array, the starting index, and k being the ending index, because we kept track of the length of all of our new characters that we saved to the old characters' positions. So if we run this, passes our test cases, and if we submit it, passes all solutions. So thank you, and follow more daily Leetcode solutions.